So welcome to today's session on NSF grant writing. My name is Professor Fitzpatrick, for those of you that don't know me, and I work in the mathematics department at the County College of Morris. And Dr. Bell, do you want to introduce yourself to the group?
Sure, I'm Katrina Bell. I'm the Director of Institutional Grants here at the college, and we're going to talk a little bit about what I do and what you guys can do with Professor Fitzpatrick today as well.
Okay, so I will share my slides. Hopefully I have the permission to do this. Let's see. And then hold on. Okay.
Very briefly.
So we're going to bounce back and forth between the slides, and then I do want this session to be interactive, where you guys are going to get to, do some things and maybe do a little bit of research. So the first thing I do want to start off with, though, is this cartoon. I thought it was interesting. So it says, "Gosh, Dr. Peabody, what are you doing to the Wayback Machine?" And he says, "I'm removing the year 2020. I don't think it will ever be a popular destination for time travel." So I do want to take a moment, though, and do think about some things that were positive in 2020. So if you guys want to share in the chat anything that happened in 2020 that was positive in your life. There had to be a few good things that happened, hopefully. So we have some new faculty who started, people learned how to use new technology, more time with your family and friends, saved money on gas. Yeah, you had time to do some special projects, shorter commute or no commute, right? Commute to the kitchen table. So one of the things for me that I would like to share in 2020 is that that's the year that I received the NSF grant. So we did receive an NSF grant to build out our data science initiatives at the college. So I will always remember that year as the year that I first received my grant. So I had actually a great year in 2020. I actually also received my promotion at CCM. So for me, I have many good memories from this year. It was probably actually one of my best years at CCM, to be honest. So that's why I would like to start and go over well, first let's talk about a big picture idea of the NSF and the funding that the NSF receives. So the NSF is funded by the federal government. And historically, they've been funded with like $8.5 billion. That was in 2021. This year, under the Biden administration, they're looking to increase, and I can't remember if it already got approved or didn't, but it's part of the infrastructure bill that Biden wants to pass, and they're going to receive a 20% increase. So they'll receive about $10 billion in funding from the federal government. There are two big themes that are coming this year that the NSF is looking to fund projects. One of them is transitioning from fundamental research to using commercial technology. And the other one that really has always been a big idea for the NSF is just supporting more women and individuals from underrepresented groups, to continue on in their studies in STEM fields. Okay, so these are the two main big themes that the NSF is looking to fund projects for. Here's a graph that shows historically how much money the NSF has received. And again, this will be one of the biggest increases that the NSF has ever received in funding. And I want to give you ideas of projects This is where they're looking to increase funding toward. I did talk about already increased participation from different ethnic groups and underrepresented people in the fields of STEM. They do support.
The coffee, so
Can you guys please mute? Jessica, you're not muted. Frank, you're not muted. Some of you I can hear, please. Thank you. They do support funding for curriculum design. They do support funding for research and recruitment. They support funding for articulations agreements to four-year colleges. They support funding for projects, seminars, mentorship programs, fellowships. So you could read through this list. One of the things specifically that I'm going to be talking about is the ATE grants and the ATE program, which is a subset from the NSF. The grant that we received for the data science initiatives was an ATE grant. And one of the good things about the ATE grants is that they're specifically designed to cater to two-year colleges. When you apply for these grants, you apply under one of these subsets. So there's biotechnology, biology, and chemistry. These are the program officers, these names here with the phone numbers and the emails. So if you ever have questions, you can always reach out to these program officers. So engineering has its own set of program officers, evaluation and research. Paul Timon is under the information technology and computer science. He is the program officer for our data science grant. And anytime I have a question, I just reach out to him. And then there's the information technology and cybersecurity program officers. One of the things and initiatives under the NSF is that they want to diversify who is receiving the grants. So as you can see from this graph here, that California receives the majority of the awards. So California has received 45 of these of the grant awards. Florida receives a lot. They have 31 awards. New York has 19 awards. And you can see New Jersey only had received 8 awards. So one of the things the NSF does try to do is diversify across the United States, making sure that not all of one state is receiving the majority of the awards. What I wanted to show you here in this data is when we did apply for the grant, we applied under the CSE, which is the computer science. That's where ours happened to fall under. You can see the funding rate in this column here. They receive with the grants they receive. So you can see the number of proposals that they get. So they got roughly about 8,000 proposals under the computer science branch. Roughly 2,000 of them were funded. And so that's a 25% funding rate. The average duration is how long the grants are for. So our grant that we applied for was a 3-year grant. It was called a smaller grant, which is less than, I think, $300,000. But on average, you can see that some of these grants, these are a little longer than I thought, are 5 years. Or that's the average. What's the mean? Let's say the Zoom is in the way. And you can see the dollar amounts here as well.
So the middle, Kelly, is the average decision time. So you can see the.
Oh, I'm sorry, decision time. Thank you. Sorry, I knew I was reading that wrong. You know what? My Zoom is in the way here. Here we go. I'll just move your faces to the left. Yeah, so thank you, Katrina. The average, so it takes, once you submit your grant, and the grants for the ATE are submitted in October. Once you submit your grant, thank you, it takes 6 months for them to review your grant, for your grant to go through it's a merit review process, and for them to make a decision. Yeah, that's what I thought. The average length of the grants are about 3 years, and that's what we applied for, is a 3-year grant. And then you can see about the size of the grant. So our grant was about $250,000. And the grants, they can range. And then here the median is $150,000 for the computer science grants. The top darker blue area is overall for the NSF. So they receive about 42,000 grants, and they fund about 30% of those. So the reason why the Biden administration wants to increase the amount of funding is because they want to see these funding rates go up. They want to see a higher percentage of grants being funded, and they really feel like they're missing out on opportunities, or like there's a good projects that they want to fund. Again, this is a graph kind of showing the same thing, where the average funding rate is about, last year was 28%. And the reason for the increase in funding is they want to see these funding rates increase. So this is where I want you guys to do a little bit of work here. And I'm gonna actually go to this website, and I'm gonna put this website in the chat. So I stopped sharing. I'd rather just show you how this works than just watch a PowerPoint slide. Okay, so I put the URL in the chat. If you do want to, I will go to this right now. I'm going to reshare my screen. And hopefully some of you are joining today's session because you have an idea in mind of a project that you would like to work on, or areas in your field that you would like to work on or learn more about. So one of the first things you need to do before writing your grant is really research what the NSF has already funded in that area. So since I was working on a data science grant, I would just type into the search data science. I would hit search. And then what's going to come up are all the grants that they've already funded in the area of data science. So does everybody see my webpage? Okay. And here's one, harnessing AI for understanding and designing materials. And if I just click on this one for AI, what you can see here is this was awarded to Duke University. This was a standard grant. They received $3 million. Yes. So when you start reading through these, I think it's really eye-opening to see how much funding there is. And then if you just read down here, you can see who the principal investigator is. I'm the principal investigator on the data science grant. And usually there's co-principal investigators, people who are working, alongside you. And then down here is the abstract. So this will tell you what the $3 million is going toward and what the $3 million is funding. So I do encourage you, I just want to pause here for a minute and give you a minute to go into the search, look for something that you're interested in, and just see what comes up. And then I'm going to ask you either to unmute and share what you searched for, or just share what you searched for in the chat. So I know Brian. Is Brian on? Where's Brian Olson? Brian, are you looking under virtual reality?
At the moment, I'm looking at forensic science.
Okay.
And they do have funding. It's mostly research funding for that would be more for four-year institutions. But I'm going to try virtual reality now.
Would anyone else like to share what they searched?
Kelly, I'm trying to search for business type topics, but they don't really, I'm not really seeing a whole lot that applies. Katrina, is there another organization maybe similar to NSF that provides grants, but maybe more for business related disciplines?
We would have to talk a little bit more specifically about what you wanted to do to find that. There are some grants at NSF that would include business topics. So it just depends on your project, and that's the main thing. We just have to talk that through.
Okay, thank you.
One of the things the NSF does like, so it is more science focused, right? It's like biology, technology, computer science. But, just throwing out some ideas, Maureen, if you're trying to do something in business, but it's related to computer science, or you're doing like using technology in your business classes, the NSF and the ATE grants do like cross-disciplinary grants where you're involving not only business. So for our grant, with the data science grant, it was cross-disciplinary. It was the mathematics department, it was the computer science department. We did include Vinay on the grant as a senior project manager for business. And then we did work alongside some of the engineering faculty after we had already submitted the grant. So working not only within your departments, but working across the campus with other departments will also strengthen your proposals.
Okay, thank you.
Maureen, was there anything in criminal justice?
I was just looking up, first I did criminal justice, and that was, I saw a lot of dissertations, things about immigration. Nothing that would apply to what I was doing. I got more specific and added fitness, because I thought maybe there'd be a possibility for a grant where we could have time and equipment for training people. And I didn't see anything come up yet, but I haven't spent too much time yet.
Good. Equipment is one of the things that they do fund as well.
Okay.
Good questions. Tom, are you looking anything up? What are you finding, Tom? What are you looking up?
So I must say that I've been to this site before, because I've looked at a bunch of stuff. To Katrina's shaking her head. We tried an eye test grant a while ago with NSF, which was a mad dash. What I find usually is I do like a lot of broad searches, and then kind of look at what some of the awards were given in, and then kind of see if I can use that for an idea. Like, because sometimes I just need a little inspiration, right? I just, there's a lot of ideas, but you're not really sure what. So I just came across one that I thought was kind of cool for me. And there was an award, $300,000 over in Alabama, but how to use 3D printing for class learning materials, right? So now I'm thinking, where students in engineering would design their test fixtures themselves, make them, use them, learn from them, right? And, that's a kind of a cool idea that I could integrate, so I kind of went the backwards approach, right? Let's see what the cool kids are doing, and let me see what I can copy.
Yeah, so Tom is right. Like, when you apply for these grants, it doesn't need to be a unique idea that no one else has done. Really, the idea behind applying for NSF grants is that, like, look what your colleagues have done at other colleges like Alabama or wherever across the United States, and say, hey, this is a cool project, this is a cool idea. We don't have this at CCM. I would really like to try this out at CCM. So with the data science grant, right, we weren't the first ones to be creating a data science program. I mean, we were one of the first. It's very new across the United States, but I did look at what several other 2-year colleges, 4-year colleges, and past NSF research supported, the ideas that I used in my grant. So they really, when you write your grant, I would say one of the big pluses is you have to pull from prior NSF research, and you have to be using that as a reference and citing it. So I'll never forget the first day I walked into Katrina's office and she told me that's what I needed to do. And I was like, oh, that's going to be a lot of work. So this is the best place to go to, I think, to find prior NSF research, is to start just searching, typing in different things, reading other people's ideas.
Can I ask a question on, you mentioned before, equipment is something they would fund. And when I worked with Katrina before, we were working on a crime scene. And one of the things where they were limiting us was the furniture. And so as we're just doing this quick search, I hadn't put any thought behind it, but I was thinking we would love to have a mock courtroom, to do mock trials that, and we could cross that over other departments where they do constitutional law, things like that. But that gets back to one of the primary things we'd be looking for would be furniture, even though it's not, I know we tried to stay away so they wouldn't perceive it as desks and chairs that is standard, but yet we weren't able to go through and still don't have that other portion of the crime scene where we were looking for something realistic that has to be furniture, like home furniture. So how would that limit me?
So you have to, in that particular instance, it's the funding source.
Okay.
That was a Perkins project that we were working on. And each of your grants is going to have limits on what you put in your budget.
Okay.
And in that particular instance, Perkins does not allow furniture.
Okay.
They perceive that in a certain way that I can't, and no matter what we say to them, they continue to say, no, that's something that your college should provide. So we just.
Okay, so other sources may approve that. And then if we were to look and try to move forward with that, is there one that you'd be able to do one grant that would complete that crime scene as well as the courtroom? Would they have to be separate, or they could be combined as, developing the criminal justice department?
Yeah, at that point, you're so far along with that, I would say combine it.
Okay. Thank you.
Another thing too is I think you want to be able to tie it to the job market. Like, so if like, again, I'm not an expert in your area, but if like the furniture or however you're doing the mock courtroom, you can tie that into like helping them when they graduate, when they enter the job market. You need to make that connection with specifically the ATE grants. Right, Katrina, would you?
Definitely. Part of your grant application would include the actual positions available, the numbers available, and then you would try to connect in with your employers in the region as well.
Okay, so I'm going to move on from this search. Where is my, here we are. Okay. So again, after today's session, I will put together a sheet of just the resources that I went over. This is another resource. Again, I will put this on the resource sheet, but this is the ATE Central page. And this is another great place to start to research and where you would get ideas and use references. So here you can see I just built out my folder by going through the search and putting in, the big, I used a lot of this stuff when I wrote my grant. I used the tools for building big data career pathways, and I started building my folder here of the research that I wanted to use in my grant. Another thing I do want to point out on the ATE Central page is, and I would highly recommend, because I did this prior to writing my grant, is I attended some of their events. I mean, you can just go down here. Sometimes they have ones that are like, how to get started writing your grant, or, they have ones specifically designed to learn about how to write your letters of commitment, or how to write your intellectual merit and broader impact statements. So if you look at the ATE Central events, again, I would highly recommend attending some of them are just webinars and they're free. What I would like to go over next, this is actually the ATE annual survey. And the annual survey is so basically all of the PIs will report their progress and their numbers back to the NSF. And what ATE reports back to Congress is this survey. So this is the survey that really justifies the funding that they have received. And so some of the things I do want to highlight and point out to you is that of the PIs, the principal investigators, 81% of them are white. So they are really looking to diversify their PIs. So I actually fall into that white category. But if you look at the gender, 64% of them are male and 36% of them are female. So I do fall into the 36% bucket. But you can see they really do not have a lot of diversity in their, gender, in their ethnicity bucket. And so they know that, and they are looking to improve on that. So give me a minute, because I do want to share this link with you. Oh, hold on, let me just. And then I do just want to show you a few things in the survey. It just takes a few minutes to. Okay, so this is the link to the survey. Okay. And one of the great things about the survey is, and why I want you to take some time to really look through it and shared you the link, is because this is where you're going to get ideas for what the NSF or the ATE grant specifically fund. So they fund professional development for educators. We are doing that with the data science grant, building materials and curriculum development, instruments, workplace-based learning, support for students to obtain certificates and licenses, professional certificates and license, academic program development and delivery. They fund conferences, meetings, and other events. We did host the Data Science Summit at CCM, and it was virtual, but they did support that, and we did write that in our grant. So part of your grant, part of when you write your grant, you have to come up with a dissemination plan of everything that you're doing. You really need to share amongst your colleagues, either across the state or across the country. So they are big on whatever you're doing and creating, that you're sharing that with other people, in your industry. Articulation agreements, publications, coordination networks. They do. I am a part of a lot of the coordination networks for data science. And I really enjoy working with my coordination networks. ATE program services, so you can read down through this. And if you have any student competitions, they have funded those in the past. And so these are just to give you ideas of what is funded. This is the PI demographics that I went over with you. They are really looking to diversify, again, their demographics. Here's program and course development. If you click on this link, you can see, what they funded. They fund the creation of certificates. That was the main purpose of our grant. They fund, the creation of new associate's degrees. And you can see they really are targeted, specifically the ATE grants are targeted for two-year colleges. Okay, so you could just take the time to really look through this. Here's the articulation agreements, educational material and development. You can look through here and see what they have funded people who create assessments, lessons plans, new modules, lab experiments, interactive simulations. Okay, so please take the time to go through this survey. I think it really gives you an in-depth idea, and again, it's supposed to create, help you create ideas of what you could possibly do. And this is really again, this is what goes to Congress, and this is what is reported back to Congress to support the funding that they've received. What time do we end at? I forget. 9:40 to 10:40, right? Okay, so are there any, I'll stop for a minute here while you guys maybe are looking through that and see if there's any questions on that.
10:40 is correct, sorry.
I have a question.
Yes.
I have I put together a proposal for poetry for STEM, making poetry and literature and writing accessible to students of STEM and other majors than, literary majors. And I want to involve faculty across CCM, have faculty development, train students, invite speakers. How can I predict how much I need for each activity and how much budget I need? And because when you write a proposal, they want you exactly say how much you need for every part of that. So do you have any idea?
Katrina, do you want to answer that? Or?
Sure. Part of our, after we've figured out what you're going to do, part of the process then is to figure out what you really need the money for.
Mhm.
Some folks come in and have an idea, but there's no concept of that. I mean, it's because it's different. We don't think of things that way, right? So we would want to talk about each of your activities and then be reasonable in what we projected. For instance, if you're having someone come in, is it someone from out of state? If it's somebody from out of state, what kind of travel do we have to pay for? What kind of, is there a speaker's fee? All those different things that we would need to do for a per diem. If you're having faculty on campus do extra things, then what's our stipend? How do we go about determining how much they would be paid? And we would put each of these items in our budget, and that's how we would come up with it. Some grants have specific numbers that they'll allow. And so we also have to consider that when we're creating our budget.
Great, thank you. I believe I can reach out to you and get more help.
Yeah, if you have like individual ideas after this, we are going to be hosting workshops on camp, or well, over Zoom, I guess now. But yeah, if you have specific ideas and then you need to, we need to work through those specific ideas, we will help you with that. Yeah. So sometimes what we did, so say you have an event on campus where you do have guest speakers come in and you want to serve, you can serve, I believe, food, as long as the food is tied to an active event, like someone is speaking, or you're doing, like for lunch, maybe you're doing breakout sessions at tables, they will, and you expect 100 people and maybe it's $10 a head per person or $15 a head per person. So something like that is how, maybe if you do host an event and you have food and you had speakers and you have to tie all those numbers together. So you would do like a certain amount for hotel, you would do a certain amount for airfare, and things like that. But so our grant kind of did change because we did have money for all of that. And then, COVID happened. So everything has been on Zoom. So then we were able to reallocate money, where we thought it was needed, because once you receive the money from the NSF, they don't want it back. They do want you spending all of the money. So you just need to rethink about your budget, because things do change and things happen, right?
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
For my particular situation, I'm teaching forensic science, and the ATE grants, they say that they have an emphasis on two-year institutions of higher education. The ATE program focuses on the education of technicians for the high technology fields. So at this time, forensic science is a gen ed course. It is also required for criminal justice majors, but it isn't, we currently aren't educating technicians. I mean, it would be nice to start an AS degree, maybe to start a certificate or something like this in order for us to be educating technicians for the high technology fields. What do you think the odds are of being able to persuade administration to put us into a position where we would be eligible for the ATE grants?
So from my perspective in dealing with the administration, what I would look at is there a job market for this particular certificate? If we show a need, then perhaps we need to send it forward. But like all things, especially in your area, you want to talk to your chair
Mhm.
and then move it up that way. Because we, strategically with the strategic plan, et cetera, we're very limited on, we try to stay within our bounds, as they say. So
Yeah.
the grants office only does things that are supported by the administration of the academic side.
Yeah, for sure. I got to go through Caitlin, Maria, Patrick. I was just, so my question really comes from me wanting to approach them in a way where it looks like I know what I'm talking about. Because if I come there with it scribbled on paper and I don't know how to frame it, it's not going to look good for me. But you helped a lot with looking into the job market for the certificate, and so yeah, I'll see what I can do to build a case.
You can also look at how you're going to connect with a four-year university. So for instance, Vinny has a grant that it's in partner, it's an ATE grant that's in partnership with NJIT. So they developed a course together. We offer the course, but it actually flows into the NJIT degree as well. Tom, do you know a little bit more about that? You might be able to explain that mechanism.
Not much more than what you just did. That is pretty much the idea. It's kind of like it's an NJIT product that we deliver, and so since that kind of helps connect it through to, because you're talking about the alternative energy, Katrina, that. So we don't have an alternative energy program on campus. We don't have a certificate. We don't have really a lot of things related to it. NJIT does. Since we already have an articulation with them with our other programs, we kind of said, well, we'll get the money, So we were able to purchase equipment. We were able to, with their help, develop curriculum and the course and everything else like that. And then we offer it as an elective here, but it is fully transferable to NJIT should they want to take that option. So that's kind of the bypass there. And Brian, just to add, by professional training, I'm a forensic engineer. So I've done that for the past 15 years. So maybe there's an engineering crossover that lets you hit an ATE grant. I don't know, just throwing that out there.
That's interesting.
Oh yeah, I'll speak with you, Tom, if that works for you. By the way, you just completely cleared up all of my issues because I'm friendly with the chair at NJIT and he's been asking me about grants and I didn't know what to do. And so, okay, this clears things up. Thank you so much. So happy I came.
So a lot of times, Brian, so on that specific grant, NJIT is the lead and CCM is like under NJIT. But predominantly with the ATE grants, they really like the two-year institution to be the lead and like NJIT to be under the two-year institution. So if you can kind of construct it that way where CCM is the lead on the grant as the two-year institution, and then NJIT is a partner on the grant with you, those type of relationships is what they really like. So again, you want to build up you need to build up transfer institutions. You need to build up industry partners for your letters of commitment. So you really need to start thinking about how you're going to build up your network and who is going to be in your network when you apply for your grant. So and we are going to, Brian, we're going to have workshops as well so that when you go to your chair, right, you're not just showing them a chicken scratch on a piece of paper or just blurting out ideas. Before you go to your chair, we have, we're going to have kind of an outline of what you need to propose to them. And it's so that you have ideas of your budget, how much money you're going to need, who are your players in your network, and what are your goals and objectives in your grant. So we've designed some workshops to help you have that conversation with your chair and make it more productive, hopefully.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome. So I should have asked you guys beforehand, but do people have access? Can you guys get into Kahoot? Or no, on your phones and stuff? So for those that know how to use Kahoot, I have a very, very simple exercise. But if you can just go to kahoot.it is how you would log into Kahoot. And I'm going to play a little game, actually. And what we're going to do is kind of guess how much money was awarded to these 3 grants. And the 3 grants that I had chosen were industry credentials woven into Miami-Dade cybersecurity program. This was created by ATE support. The other grant, we're going to see how much was awarded to the Northeast Big Data Innovation Hub. They actually just hosted a webinar that I attended, and I was very curious about their grant and how much they received. And the other grant that I looked up was, I don't know if this, was this an AT one? I can't remember, but this is Warren County Community College recently received a grant for their drone program on campus. So if you could go to kahoot.it, let's see where I have this. I have it here. Oops. Okay, let me just stop sharing.
So while Kelly looks for that, one of the things with ATE is there's several different, now she just found it.
I
The
found it.
different
Sorry.
levels. There are the project levels, and then there's also the center level. So the projects are the ones that we're working on right now. They're around 300,000 max. And then you can go to the center level after you've got 2 or 3 of the projects in the same area. They like to see it, like when Kelly's grant is up, we want to talk about going to the next level with data science. So, or expanding it out into another area, but still focusing in on data science. Say we get another ATE grant in that field, and then we start thinking, okay, can we be a center for this area in data science or the related AI or different, whatever the different mechanisms are at that point. And when we can do that, then we start looking at what I consider real money. So it's $1 million, couple million instead of up that way. But first we have to get our feet wet, and we have to get a good reputation with NSF, which Kelly's helping us do now. So that's where we are.
Yeah, so it's actually funny because 300,000 is considered the small grant, where like 3 million is the bigger grants.
Yeah, I'll still take it.
Oh, hi, Gina. I didn't know you were on. Okay, so we're just waiting for more players to log in, and then we'll start. So this is just a quick matching game to see how much, again, the grants will be proposed, and you're basically just guessing, but how much you think that they were funded. So I will start. Hopefully everybody can see the Kahoot. So this was the industry credentials woven into the Miami-Dade cybersecurity program. So this grant, they received $200,000. So 4 people got that one, right? I always love the leaderboard. This is my favorite part. Katrina got it right.
Katrina, I think you're a ringer. I don't know.
Okay, next question. This was the Northeast Big Data Innovation Hub. So the Northeast Big Data Innovation Hub is really one of those networks that I was talking about that really tries to get a collaboration of people together to think about ideas in data science. So I just went to one of their conferences the other day that was hosted at Columbia. Yes, they received $4 million. I couldn't believe it when I looked it up. So 4 people got that right. We'll go back to the leaderboard. Kathy, is that Dean Nass? She's in the lead now. Okay, the next and last one. This was Warren Community College. They received money for a drone program. So if you do Google drones in the NSF, you could see that they do support this type of work as well, which I was surprised to see that they supported, programs with drones. But they do use drones in a lot of fields now, as far as like, just environmental scientists I see using them. I see them using, criminal justice all the time. Yeah, they received a $1.5 million grant. And back to our leaderboard. Oh, this is just telling us who won. Our third place was Jess, second place was AC, and first place was Kathy. Runner-ups were Bill and Katrina. Okay, so great job everyone playing the game. I hope you enjoyed that, but I really, hopefully it opens up your eyes to see how big some of these grants are and what different people are doing to receive the grants.
I think I better know these things, right, Katrina?
Here, so let me go back to this. I know I keep going back and forth, but let me go back to, where am I? Oh, I don't want to share. Let's see. I have too many things open. Oh, here we go. So let me go back and share the PowerPoint slides. Maybe I should get the Kahoot music off. Right? Did you guys hear it? So hopefully you can see my slides. If you can't, just let me know. Katrina, this is yours.
We just wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about the role of the Institutional Grants Office here at CCM. So we do help with idea generation and clarification of goals. Like if you come in and you have this big idea, a lot of times what we need to do is talk about a smaller idea. We get kind of caught up sometimes in thinking we have to solve world problems, when the reality is we need to build a course or we need to build a certificate, something like that. We also do help with the editing of the final proposal. We help revise the budget and make sure that everything is addressed in there. And then also we are the only office on campus that can actually submit the proposal. So there's a couple of things in there you don't see. And I think probably Kelly will share a little bit more about this, but we don't write the proposal. And we'll help with the idea generation and clarification, and we'll help you with an outline and make sure that you're addressing all the points. But especially with NSF, they want to hear from the faculty. When you talk about I'll stop because I'm going to get into Kelly's area, but just know that that is true, and you'll hear more about that. We need about a week after you've developed your proposal and written it. We need about a week before that is actually submitted to get it in to do the final edits. We have to run the budget through our budget office and make sure that everything is in order. And then for the submission, you'd be shocked at how many different forms have to be completed in order to do the submission. So that's generally how we process. And there's also a preliminary approval form. A lot of you may have already seen that has to go through. That's why it's important for you to talk to your chair and dean before we move too far down the road, because that approval form has to be done. So, but we're here as really to help with any part of it, but just understand that we don't necessarily do the actual writing piece of it. Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you, Katrina. Yeah, so Dr. Bell does make a good point. So for me, when I started meeting with her, and I am a mathematician, you know, mathematics is my background, writing is not my background. So for me to have to write a 15-page proposal, you know, that was the challenging part for me. My ideas were all in my head, and Katrina was like, Kelly, you have to get your ideas down on paper. You have a lot of good ideas. It seems like you have a lot of good ideas in your head. And her guidance was, one, they need to be backed by prior NSF research. They can't just be like random ideas that you're kind of grasping at straws here. You know, they really do need to be supported by prior work. And the writing piece, you know, again, I'm going to walk you through this, so that way you're not kind of trying to do it yourself for the first time. I think it could be difficult. So, you know, I am going to work as a mentor with you to help you, you know, develop that 15-page final proposal that does get submitted to the NSF. I am not a polisher. I am not, you know, a finisher. That was Katrina's job. Katrina was the polisher. You know, I did have a very, I think, well-written 15-page document, but it wasn't, you know, Katrina's department put the finishing touches on that. And that needed to be done, right? So any questions on that, writing the proposal, or any questions on the process, or any questions on what the grants department does?
Kelly, did we talk about your role in?
No, we didn't yet.
Mentor?
Do you want to talk about that, or?
Sure. So one of the things that we identified is we were doing an evaluation of our office and having to faculty, is that we needed a little bit more help on that side. That having a faculty member talk to a faculty member and to help a faculty member was much better. And the peer-to-peer support is always, it's proven to be a much better model. So Kelly has been through this whole ordeal. We went through a process for one AT submission and we weren't able to submit. So she worked really, really hard in her second year to actually get the proposal in order and got it to us in order, so that we were able to submit. Her experience is going to be invaluable to you guys as you develop your own proposal, because she has worked with an evaluator. She's worked with NSF. She's worked with us. And so she knows the whole scheme of it. And I really am appreciative of her willingness to help us and to help you in this whole process. So thank you, Kelly.
You're welcome, Dr. Bell. Yeah, so for me, to be honest, it was a 2-year process for me to write and finish this grant. I don't want that to happen to the next person, right? It doesn't need to be a 2-year process for you. So I've already gone through the hurdles. I've already encountered a lot of the obstacles. You know, one of the things she mentioned was having an evaluator. To me, that was a 6-month process of, I don't want to say hemming and hawing, but figuring out who should be the evaluator on the grant. And it took a lot of thought. Who should that be? Who should I approach? Does it need to be someone who's an expert in data science? And I realized it doesn't, that person who's your evaluator does not need to be an expert in your field. They need to be an expert in being an evaluator for NSF ATE grants. So we already have a great connection. This guy is wonderful who we use as an evaluator. So that is not something that you need to spend 6 months figuring out who to use. We already have a good contact for that. And once your proposal is more in its final stages, you will work with the evaluator, who he will put his finishing touches on it. And he has just been an amazing resource, and he is an amazing person to work with. So the people that I have worked with along my journey through the ATE grants and through the NSF, I have been really happy to learn from everyone that I've worked with. And I've had so many new opportunities now that I've received the grant. I work with other grants and other people on other grants. You know, in October, I'm doing a town hall for data science with the NSF. So you will get a lot of opportunities once, you know, if you do get a grant and you start working in this specific area. So we're running close on time here. What are we at? 10. Okay. So I will help you with creating your intellectual merit statement and your broader impact statement. Again, we don't need to go into the details today, but I do want to quickly mention there is this proposal and award policy procedure guide. This guide is 200 pages. It is a guide on how you should write your NSF grant. And I'm like, you know, my face is like, oh, good Lord, I have to read a 200-page document on how to write this grant. Like, nobody wants to do that. So I will help you figure out what pages are important in this document and what pages you need to read in this document. Obviously, I did not read all 200 pages, but I did have to refer to this document when I was really trying to think about how to fine tune the intellectual merit. What does broader impact mean? What does my budget need to look like? So some of those questions that you had can be found in this document through the NSF. And, you know, little things that you wouldn't think are important were important, like the font, and, you know, everything has to be in black and white. There are very specific guidelines. It is not a free-for-all when you write this document. Again, me being a math major, writing and having those criteria is really was not my background. Just to give you a quick overview, I did talk about this. You know, this is Katrina does this part. Her office enters the grant into the FastLane system, or I guess they have 3 systems here. And she is the one who submits your grant to the NSF. After that happens, your grant will go through this 6-month merit review process. Don't email them. Don't say, hey, did you look at my grant? You know, they will get back to you. It will take 6 months. Again, if you spent a lot of time writing your grant, again, dotting your I's, crossing your T's, I really felt like we put our best effort forward, right, Katrina? When we submitted our grant, I was like, this was the best I could do. But even when we submitted the grant, I would say Dr. Bell will probably agree with me that, like, we weren't sure if we were going to get it or not, right? Like, you just don't know, you know, what they were going to fund. And I still had a lot of doubt when it was submitted whether we were even going to get this or not. But luckily, I feel like our hard work paid off.
This is the first time that I'm serving on an NSF review panel. So I am doing that. I'm on one right now. So hopefully I'll have a lot more information to share with you guys after that's over. Because I do believe that these panels, you know, you can go down a rabbit hole with some of them and you never know what you're going to get. So you don't know if you're going to get funded depending on who's on your review, you know?
And then when they do get back to you, there is this 30 days of back and forth. So they are going to look at your proposal. They might come back with 10 questions. It took me quite a bit of effort to answer their, like, let's say 10 questions. So this 30-day period is this kind of grace period where they're like coming back to you with questions. They might want you to revise your budget. They might ask you to revise a few things. But then mostly if they're asking you to questions and they're asking you to revise things, most likely I would say they're really looking to fund you. So again, it is a long process, but I will say, in my opinion, it was very worthwhile to be working with the NSF and to be working on this project. I really enjoy it. This is just another overview of how to look at the different phases. Again, it's this 6-month period. I just want to draw your attention to that. Once you submit your proposal, it does take a little bit of time to go through that review process. So these are the sessions I will be hosting as the NSF faculty mentor. They're going to be Tuesdays during college hour. So the first one is kind of, again, talking about using that prior research, going over the bio sketches. And, you know, if you have some of this drafted prior to us meeting, you know, then we could work and more fine tune your intellectual merit and broader impact statements. On November 9th, we will be going over the letters of commitments, objective goals, and timeline. And then the last one is December 14th. We'll talk about the budget, the logic model, dissemination plans, and any other questions you have. So these workshops have been posted, I believe, on the CTL webpage, and you can find them. They will be over Zoom.
Oh, may I ask, can you record those just in case they clash with department meeting?
Yeah, okay. Yep, sure, Brian.
Thank you.
I think usually the department meetings are on the last Tuesday or Thursday. These are on the second Tuesdays. But sure, Brian. If you miss one, I can work with you individually too, Brian. If you miss one and you just want to meet with me separately, we can just set up our own meeting if you want.
Thank you.
Yep. And then this was,
Do you foresee the workshops as being more of a presentation or a work together kind of situation?
I'd see it as both.
Okay.
Depending on how many people come to the workshops, I will go, this is what I want the focus of the workshops to be, but depending on where people are along in the process. So some people might be like brainstorming, coming up with new ideas. Some people might already have their ideas and, have already written their intellectual merit and have already written their statements. So these workshops are designed to be flexible. It's not just going to be me going over a PowerPoint presentation. I do want you to come to either the workshop having like some of these already done and thought about, and then we kind of collaborate and go over them. So it is a long process to write your grant. So you can't just be like, if the grant's due October 14th, you can't be a month before and think that you're going to put your grant together. The grant, to me, if you're going to write a solid grant and submit it in October of next year, you need to be working on that now. With our workloads and everything else, I would just do this in my spare time, start working on all the little pieces that need to go together. I will say in my opinion, it took me a long time to put all these pieces together. So I would say the workshops are intended to be collaborative and working together, and depending on where the people who attend the workshops, depending on where you are along in the process. Does that sound fair? And then this is just, Dr. Bell did speak about the centers. And one of the centers that was just recently announced was this community college was funded to be a cybersecurity center. And I forget how much money they received, but I think it was something like $8 million or something like that. So the center, like Dr. Bell spoke about, is a center who had received a lot of funding for different grants, different ATE grants. So we're a little bit over, but I will leave it open to questions. But thank you for attending. And I really do look forward either to working with you in a workshop, or if you want to work one-on-one and you have questions one-on-one, you can always just send me an email.